If you're a Marvel Cinematic Universe fan, odds are you've heard by now, or experienced firsthand, that the Inhumans show isn't very good. And there are a lot of people out there tearing into it, but that's not what I'm gonna do here today. If that's what you're looking for, the Weekly Planet podcast does a hilarious run-through of all the ridiculous things that happen in the first couple episodes. For this series, though, I'm more interested in the small tidbits of interesting material in the show that, if they'd been fleshed out properly, could have at least given the Inhumans an incredibly engaging protagonist. There's one character who is so close to being an engaging, sympathetic hero. Unfortunately, the show tries to convince us that he's the bad guy. Yes, I'm talking about Maximus Boltagon, brother of the Inhumans King Black Bolt. He's presented as the villain, despite the fact that he's the only character in the show who's fighting for a good cause, the freedom of his people. So I want to talk about the small tweaks that could have been made to turn Maximus into an incredibly compelling hero for the Inhumans series. I'm Christian Pearson, and welcome to Superhero Studies. Let me pitch you a premise really quick. A group of superpowered beings secretly live in an isolated society on the moon. The people are divided into groups depending on the superpowers they have. People with weak or less useful powers are forced to work in the mines and are less respected than their impressively empowered peers. Many of the people yearn to travel to Earth to live fuller lives, but the royal family ruling over the city dismisses this idea without any consideration. They promote fear of Earth despite the fact that Earth has dozens of examples of publicly superpowered beings who are well respected and accepted. But one member of the royal family sees freedom for his people as a possibility and believes that all Inhumans should be free to live and thrive on Earth. He fights against his oppressive family to give his people the lives they deserve. Well, this is the exact premise of the Inhumans. And Maximus, who's sold to us as the bad guy, is that member of the royal family who wants freedom for his people. That is exactly what's happening in episode 1. I left out some of Maximus's kinda creepy or weird actions, but as the show presents us in the first episode, he's the only remotely sympathetic character. It's revealed early on that he doesn't have any powers, and multiple times he's insulted for this.
Regardless of what my genes might suggest, I'm an Inhuman like the rest of you.
Right there, he's already set up as a sort of runt-of-the-litter underdog who can see firsthand the flaws of the Inhuman society.
To the mines you go.
He is yet to undergo the genetic council's testing. I'm sure they'll find something wonderful about him.
They didn't with you.
2 episodes in, the show presents no hints of providing a reason for the audience to connect with the desires of the rest of the royal family. Maximus wants positive change. The rest of the family seems totally oblivious, or at least apathetic, to how their society negatively divides people based on the genetic lottery. The only goal the royal family has in the first episodes is that they want to stop Maximus from freeing the Inhumans. It probably doesn't need to be said, but this is not a relatable goal. Also, this very idea of the Inhumans being separated based on the quality of their powers flies in the very face of Inhuman culture in the comics. Inhumans are a race of people whose philosophy is based around the idea that everyone must accept each other for who they are and what they do, and not what they look like or what their powers are. They have to be this way because, in the comics, most Inhumans are mutated and disfigured looking. But this was almost totally disregarded in the show, and 90% of the people just look human. I understand that there are budgetary restraints for the first season of a show like this, but the normalcy of the Inhumans' appearance doesn't do justice to the vision of the society in the comics. But I'm getting sidetracked. Let's go back to Maximus. Because shifting the show around to make him a hero isn't only a good idea because of his motives in the show. As I mentioned, his brother Black Bolt is king of the Inhuman homeworld Adelan, and rules with his wife Medusa at his side. In the first episode, it's told to us that Black Bolt accidentally killed his and Maximus's parents, and that Maximus used to be very close with Medusa until she was married to Black Bolt. Now, that sounds like stuff that could be easily used as generic revenge fuel for Maximus, but it could also be something more. If Maximus was presented as the hero and the royal family as the villains, the family could have used this information to smear Maximus's name and his message to the people of Adelan. The rest of the royal family could say that Maximus is just acting out in petty revenge against his brother. It would have been a great way for them to undermine his message of peace when he attempts an uprising for his people. It would have been a good, significant obstacle for him to overcome. Plus, the fact that he has feelings for Medusa, even though she's one of the people trying to maintain the status quo on Adelan, would mean that this scene could have easily been incredibly emotional.
If you do this, I will never forgive you.
For context, in the show, Maximus does stage a coup to take down the royal family so he can lead the Inhumans to Earth and freedom. Also, Medusa's power is that she can control her hair in a sort of Dr. Octopus claws kind of way, so the only way to keep her subdued is to shave her hair off, which they accomplish far more easily than they should have, by the way. As the show is, this scene is just frustrating because it's very clear that it's being done to keep the special effects budget down, and maybe to get rid of the unconvincing wig that Serinda Swan's wearing. But imagine if this had been set up differently, if it had been built up to properly. Imagine two old friends who at a time loved each other, but have since grown apart due to differing morals. Maximus still loves Medusa, but also wants freedom for his people. He's tried to convince Medusa that the Inhumans deserve to live fuller lives on Earth, but she's adamant about staying blind to this truth. It could have also been set up that Medusa is fantastically skilled at fighting with her hair, and that she takes incredible care of it. Make it clear that it's a trait of hers that she's very proud of, and one she can do immense damage with. Then, when it comes to Maximus's coup, Medusa fights back hard. She threatens to ruin Maximus's plan to free his people, so he makes the hard choice to take away something she highly values. He takes her hair, and she despises him for it. He even hates himself for doing it. He loves her and didn't want to hurt her like that, but it was a necessary step towards freedom. Forcing the hero of a story to make an incredibly difficult decision like this in pursuit of their goals can make a character that much more interesting. Even if we don't agree with what he does, we respect it because we know he's doing it in pursuit of the greater good. The change in setup and twist in perspective of this scene could have set up Medusa as a great villain as well, which would make dialogue like this much more fitting.
Soon, we will be together, and when we are, we will return to Adelan. We will find Maximus, and we will tie a rope around his neck and throw him from the highest wall in the city.
Instead, the only interesting thing about the head shave scene was that we got a pretty sweet cover of the Rolling Stones' Paint It Black done by Kira, which I can't play for fear of copyright infringement, but go check it out, it's pretty great. It is a bit frustrating that there was so much real potential in the Maximus we got from Inhumans. There was a genuinely good character right there who's essentially wasted. It's that much more disappointing because Ewan Rayon gives such a great performance despite being given a script that doesn't respect his character's morals and goals. And yes, making Maximus the hero does have potential to upset Inhuman Comics fans. Maximus is supposed to be a villain, and Black Bolt and Medusa are supposed to be heroes, and it would be somewhat tainting the spirit of the comics if you flip things around. But if the showrunners were stuck on the concepts they presented in the show, then making Maximus the hero at least would have meant we had a protagonist who was worth rooting for. And the things I suggested could have been altered and Maximus still could have been the villain, but for that to work, the royal family would have to have reasonable, fleshed out motives for not wanting to alter the Inhumans' flawed culture. Soon after Maximus's coup, he starts shifting more into generic villain territory. He lies to the people of Adelan about where the royal family is, he sends people to kill the royal family even though they're out of the way and he can proceed with taking the Inhumans to Earth, and the small bit of intrigue that the show held for me slowly vanishes through episode 2. I might keep watching just out of curiosity, and hey, there's a chance the show actually does take some time to explore the good Maximus is trying to do. But if I had to wager a guess, I'd say they'll probably reveal that his plan in some way has dire consequences for the Inhuman people, and that for some reason he no longer cares about them and just wants freedom for his own selfish reasons. I hope I'm proven wrong for the better, but only time will tell. But hey, what do you think of the Inhumans show? Do you disagree with everything I've said? Do you love the show? Tell me about it in the comments below. Also, click the subscribe button and the bell to get notified when I release a new superhero study every Wednesday. I'm Christian Pearson, and thanks so much for watching Superhero Studies.